Marvel Rivals, a game that needs no introduction if you've been alive and on the internet in the past year now. Huh. If you need an introduction because you haven't played the game or are chronically offline, then I can certainly try to explain it in a page of text or so. Marvel Rivals is a 6v6 hero shooter, emphasis on the hero, please add more villains, which features over 60 years of Marvel Comics catalog of colorful characters, fighting across time and space to save the time stream from being torn apart further, with every event being under the watchful eye and disembodied voice of the daughter of Galactus himself, Galacta. She may, or may not, depending on your outlook, have an annoying voice that has more voice lines now, thanks to a certain character that almost everyone wanted since launch. Oh, how the monkey's paw curls so. Every character brought into the game is slotted into one of three roles. Unless you are a certain Wilson of the Wade variety, then you can just be all three at once, with said roles being Vanguard, Duelist, and Strategist. Going into these a little further, Vanguards are your case-by-case frontliners that tank the damage with their higher-than-average health pools and initiate where the fights play out. Your duelists are the main source of damage for the team, and sometimes very attention demanding with how to deal with them properly. And strategists are generally the source of healing for the team, but their main impact is defining how these fights play out with good skill usage and awareness of both their team and surroundings. These battles could happen in very different locations across the time split realities, whether that be across galaxies, different realms, or just New York, because it wouldn't be a Marvel game if there wasn't any fighting in New York. Fighting over a payload, attacking or defending, or having both teams fighting over and capturing points with the best 2 out of 3. Or maybe resource... Wait, no, that's not in rotation anymore. Huh. I guess it was really hated that much. Anyway, that's the gist of gameplay, but that's not why you're here. You clicked on the video because you want to know my take on characters' kits. So let's get to it, shall we? Let's get into it, starting where all great character creation starts, the base stats. War Machine's base speed is very standard amongst the Vanguards, with 6 meters per second, but shares Magneto's health of 650. Because he's in a bulky suit of armor, that and in the overall shape of things, War Machine's bulk is between Magneto and Groot, so this fits in my eyes. Before we get into his primary attack, I should preface it with this. In my 23 years as a gamer, there is a mechanic that I'm very fond of, that I feel many dislike or even hate, and I'm intrigued that, at the time of writing, this mechanic hasn't been implemented into the game yet. The heat mechanic. If you're not new to gaming, you might be thinking I'm out of my mind on liking this mechanic, but hear me out. The Iron Man armor is an enclosed battlesuit that has little to no small compartments for reloading the arsenal on the battlefield. I thought that it wouldn't be right to have the War Machine armor suffer a mandatory reload when out of ammo, like Storm reloading her wind, or Groot reloading his arms. It just doesn't make sense, and I wanted him to feel unique as a ranged tank, so I couldn't just have him shoot infinitely, but with a slow rate of fire like a second Penny Parker. So I figured I'd give him the heat mechanic and a high rate of fire as a nice balance. Thus, War Machine's primary fire would be his machine gun gauntlets. Holding left click will fire a full auto assault onto the enemy with a damage falloff of up to 50% at 40 meters onward. A heat meter will gradually go up while shooting at 15 energy per second with a maximum of 120 energy of uninterrupted fire until overheated, similar to Iron Man's boost, but the reverse. The cooldown of the gauntlets will occur a quarter of a second after the shooting stops, and the meter will decrease at 10 energy per second. Letting the meter reach 100% will cause the gauntlets to overheat and force a 7.5 second cooldown in which War Machine cannot shoot with his primary. The type of fire would be projectile, and not hit scan, so leading your targets is highly recommended. It does go without saying, but I will, that burst fire or feathering is even more recommended for targets at mid to long ranges. And in terms of a visual aid for anyone who's fighting against War Machine, the gun barrels will start to visibly glow in orange at an increasing rate as he shoots his primary, until it overheats. At this point, he will raise his arms slightly and let out all the built-up heat as steam exiting the vents of his arms. That about covers just his first ability. You thought I was going to half-ass this? Think again. I've had a whole year to think about this. For War Machine secondary fire, I had two paths I could take. Either one, I used the minigun from the movies or the comics and have it act as a less accurate version of the primary, with its own heat buildup to keep track of. Or two, I could use his lesser known attachment that was a big help to Spider-Man of all characters when he faced off against the symbiotes in the 90s cartoon, and tie it into an actual Iron Man ability in-game. It's obvious that I chose the latter, as I feel he needed something to deal with them pesky flyers, and those masked menaces, like Spider-Man, trying to pull my heels off the edge, away from me for the 80th time, leaving me to fight against the entire enemy front line with half health and a damn dream. Apologies for the outburst. I've had that happen to me too many times. Anyway, I decided to go for the Sonic Cannon, which was famously used during the 90s Spider-Man cartoon Venom episodes. Or was it the Carnage saga? Either way, I feel this cannon is a perfect tool for his kit to allow for great chip damage while the primary is on cooldown. Or, if there's any flyers that are out of reach and are not worth trying to lead with the primary, pressing right click will activate the Sonic Cannon, which will go up and over War Machine's shoulder to focus a continuous beam of hypersonic energy wherever you aim. Think like Iron Man's Unibeam in terms of the usage, the damage with 140 damage per second, and the range of a 25 meter range all being the same. Unlike Iron Man though, because I do want him to be different enough, the Sonic Cannon is not a channeling ability and is instead a cast, which in English for my non-nerds means that it doesn't require the activation button to be held and instead is activated and used when tapped. Once activated, the Sonic Cannon will fire a beam for 3 continuous seconds, which can be cancelled by pressing the activation button again, upon which the ability will go on cooldown for 4.5 seconds, either when fully discharged or by cancelling the ability early. Its similarity to Iron Man's Unibeam is another reason why I wanted him to be a grounded character. I don't think we need another aerial character with a beam attack, and it would be a nice addition to have a tank that feels like a good generalized counter to some poke tanks that poke and run away, like the nuisances that they happen to be. Quick question. What is a War Machine depiction that doesn't include missiles? Don't answer that. It was a trick question. Every iteration of the character, in everything he's appeared in, War Machine is known for using missiles, alongside the other bells and whistles of the default Iron Man armor. It's a no-brainer that the missile launcher on the opposing shoulder isn't just for show, and is fully equipped. Pressing and holding Alt will activate the missile launcher. When activated, a 10-meter diameter circle will appear 5 meters in front of War Machine, acting as a landing point, and can be aimed forward up to 25 meters. Upon release of the activation button, lob a volley of missiles at the circle in an arcing trajectory. The missiles themselves are not powerful, but they can deal splash damage to those within the area of attack, but they do more damage if any of the missiles hit an enemy before hitting the ground. Missile damage would be percentile to current health of the target, and a direct hit would be 30% more damage, as the missile will explode on contact. So it would be wise to either lead a fight with a volley or launch a volley during a fight to attack the mid and or back lines to apply pressure while being the frontline vanguard. After the missiles are launched, the ability will go on a 7-second cooldown. I felt that this was a very straightforward ability in both its simplicity and its practicality in its usage. The volley of missiles is a staple of the character's moveset in all forms of media, including fighting games, even anime with Disc Wars. And I felt it just wasn't right to have a War Machine kit without the missiles. I mean, have you seen Infinity War's battle in Wakanda? Bombs and missiles everywhere. The percentile damage was to have at least one difference from the Sonic canon in terms of the damage types, and that it allows him to provide adequate pressure on the backline that could possibly assist any allied flankers. But I feel, most importantly, that War Machine could use the missile volley to initiate fights on objectives, because that's what great tanks do. Now, in terms of War Machine's sustain ability, or I guess survival ability, sorry, it's my terminology for an ability that allows the character to survive a long while or assist in the survival of others. It's an ability that sometimes is very forgotten when it comes to making a good Vanguard kit, and War Machine has a great one, in my opinion. Introducing Solidified Defense. Pressing E will activate this ability. War Machine squats into a stance for a duration of 8 seconds. While in this stance, War Machine takes 30% damage reduction with a meter that will begin to fill up as he takes damage. With the more damage he takes, the more damage he deals, up to 30% more damage. He gains Unstoppable and moves 25% slower as well. While using Solidified Defense, Phased Flight is locked and can't be activated. When Solidified Defense ends, the ability goes on an 18-second cooldown. In terms of Solidified Defense, I didn't want him to have a standard shield ability, because one, we already have plenty of tanks and vanguards that have good shield abilities, and two, he doesn't have a shield. He is the shield, which fits in line with his character brilliantly, because he'd gladly get in the way of danger and risk his own life to protect his team and take enemy fire. Also, his team can survive to win another day. Think of Solidified Defense as being similar with Emma Frost's Diamond form with its functionality. More so when you're looking at both the duration and the cooldown time of the ability, which is where I got these numbers from. Aside from the ultimate, let's move on to War Machine's last ability. The best one, in my opinion. Jameson aside, the War Machine armor is an Iron Man suit that's bigger, bulkier, and made to be a tank on the battlefield. But even with all of that, the most basic of Iron Man suits fly. So why shouldn't the War Machine? Enter the last ability before the ultimate, Phased Flight. Pressing Shift will activate Phased Flight. War Machine's eyes and arc reactor shift blue as he enters true flight for 7 seconds duration, and during said duration, takes 15% reduced damage with a 40% increase to movement speed. Upon cast, gain Untouchable for a brief half second. Phased Flight has a cooldown of 10 seconds. Now this is the simplest ability, and yet it is the most crucial for his kit in my opinion. To reference the comics, like we tend to do, War Machine's most modern suit is given the capability to phase through walls, like Vision tends to do, and to reference this in gameplay, he'd move slightly faster while in true flight. In terms of the phasing itself, I'm not too sure how it would work, considering there's no characters like Kitty Pryde in the game to lay that foundation, so as a compromise, I've just given him the damage reduction. The Untouchable status is a way to make it a skilled cast, whether you want it to fly, or to survive an ult that you just can't avoid. I also did this because he doesn't have a shield ability that could help block the damage from some ultimates that would absolutely kill him outright. When discussing Solidified Defense, I did add that when War Machine is using Solidified Defense, Phased Flight would be locked, meaning it can't be cast or used while using Solidified Defense. This doesn't work vice versa, however, and activating Solidified Defense while using Phased Flight will cancel the True Flight and put Phased Flight on the full cooldown, letting you get into fights quicker with the detriment of your movement ability. And now for the penultimate ability, War Machines that is. Now I will begin with saying that it was very difficult to create an ultimate ability for War Machine, considering Punisher exists and already has a great ultimate that would work for War Machine. But I couldn't just copy and paste and call it a day. Well, I mean, I could, but then I'd be doing my favorite character a massive disservice. So, as a compromise, I decided to take a gander at another 66 hero shooter for any ideas. Try to figure out which hero shooter and which character while I read you the details. Introducing the ultimate for War Machine, Orbital Bombardment. Pressing Q while the ability is ready will activate the ultimate. To the enemies, his ultimate line reads, "Boom, you looking for this?" But to his allies, "Time to show what a hero can do!" War Machine ascends 10 meters into the air and is locked in place, unloading his entire arsenal onto the enemies for an 8-second duration. Fire the machine gun gauntlets where War Machine's crosshair is aiming, and in a 20-meter circle around the reticle on the ground is a constant barrage of missiles shooting out, damaging any who find themselves within its range. Aiming is 50% slower, as War Machine himself tries to control the recoil from the amount of bullets and missiles being shot out. Have you figured it out yet? It's Pharah from Overwatch. Look, Pharah's ultimate fits War Machine for the rockets, but to add a spin of originality to it, I decided to add the machine gun fire, to give it something to do, while you're locked in place and all. The reduced aiming speed isn't just so we can avoid him being called the, quote, Pharah of rivals, end quote. It's also to make it a skilled cast, which evens out the ludicrous nature of the ultimate itself, but a lot of Marvel Rivals ultimates are pretty ludicrous in themselves, so there is counterplay. If you're fast enough to evade the shots and barrage, which shouldn't be too difficult with how some of the characters can just blink out of existence when they feel threatened. And now, the fun part. Team-ups. Now, character team-ups are the bread and butter of Rivals, and that's what makes it very different from any other hero shooter that's out on the free market. Hell, actually, even in the paid market no one's done it before. Leave it to the professional mobile game creators to innovate the landscape of a genre that's existed since 1996? Anyway, on to the plausible team-ups. Only 2 plausible for now. The first is nitrogen-cooled venting. With Luna Snow, alternatively, it could be Jeff, as an anchor allows War Machine to reduce the heat buildup and cooldown of his primary fire by 15%. This one's an easy one, it's self-explanatory. Do I even need to say anything else about it? The second being the Jericho. War Machine's actually the anchor here, with Iron Man as the recipient, with him receiving an upgrade to his missiles, allowing for 100% more damage. Honestly, this is more of a joke pick in my opinion, mainly due to the memes of Iron Man needs better missiles people tended to complain about ever since the game came out. As funny as it may be, there's just no character with this team up in particular. I mean, these two go way back. Like, literally, the beginning, way back. Now, I could go in depth about how I feel a real team up between these two would go. But I was actually told about how another team up could go with these two by the first guest of our series. I'll pass it over to him and allow him to introduce himself.
I have to give a massive thanks to TK for allowing me to even be here to talk about all of this. So I appreciate you and thank you for allowing me to be upon your channel, giving my input on what I believe this team up could be. Hi, I'm Kijin, and I'm a one-trick. Listen, I know, one-tricks are frowned upon, and when you hear the character that I play, you're not gonna like it anymore. I play the webhead himself, Spider-Man. Hey, lower the pitchforks and lower your torches. We're all here to have fun, and so why not let me do what I gotta do at least a little bit to enjoy the show. But let's get back on topic. I'm here to talk about, as I stated before, the team-up between Iron Man and War Machine. Even though I don't play Iron Man as my main duelist, it's still good to think about these things, as that's what keeps both the spirit of the community and the game itself alive. This team-up is a reference to one of my personal favorite moments in all of Iron Man 2, and arguably, probably one of the best dual ultimate finishes in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, in my personal opinion. Introducing this team up, it would be known as the Hemorrhoid Attack. Iron Man actually would be the anchor for this team up. Like the Captain America and Winter Soldier team up, War Machine or Iron Man can activate the ability, signaling to the other, and upon activating, Iron Man flies down to the ground level and stands back to back with War Machine. In a 20-meter circle, they both begin to spin and shoot myriads of machine gun fire, missiles, and shooting repulsors for a 3-second duration, finishing with War Machine crouching low and allowing for a beautiful laser show by our main man Tony Stark, the Iron Man. The ability will go on a 12-second cooldown after this beautiful little laser show. Numbers-wise, it could still be in the air. It's all just spitball at the end of the day, but at least the ability is down on paper. Anyways, that's all I really had to say, and again, I appreciate you for allowing me to come onto your channel and, talk my mind about this little idea that I had come up with. So again, TK, big appreciation to you for allowing me to do this, but it is now time for me to pass it back to you in the studio, Trooper. Have a good day to all of you. And make sure you like the video and subscribe if you haven't. And by the way, there's a bell notification icon down there. Click that too. Anyways, I gotta get out of here before, the J. Jonah guy gets all mad at me because I'm a webhead. Anyways, I'm leaving. Web swing!
Yay, thanks, bro. Keep at it. Yes, Spider Menace. How'd you like my brother's take on the team up between these two? I mean, when I first heard it, I knew I had to include it in the video, but it just didn't feel right, me saying everything, because I don't want to take credit from him. In fact, that team-up idea was what made me think that I should include more than just my kits, my ideas in this series, and feature my friends' takes on abilities, or, in this case, my own brother, when they come up with it. I mean, look, my brother is just as passionate about the game as I am, and from what I'm told, he's having a blast, and he's getting really good at Spider-Man, so I figured, why not have him on as the first guest of my series? To actually talk about the team-up itself, I feel it would be a great AoE ability, and add so much more character to Iron Man, because for some odd reason, neither Rhodey nor Pepper are even mentioned, like, anywhere in the game, not even in passing. In any interaction or obscure hidden away text, I read everything. So it would be nice to get some redeemable qualities for Tony that isn't just, he knows he's an asshole. I even imagine the voice for Rhodey in Earth's Mightiest Heroes, the Avenger show, Bumper Robinson, would be a great voice to return to play the character in Rivals. However, because of the Museum of Contemplation map, I do think that they might use his talents for Falcon when he gets added, because Redwing actually makes an appearance in one of the exhibits of said museum. That and Bumper Robinson voiced Falcon in the Avengers Assemble show. Anyways, all that being said is good and all, but that wasn't my team-up idea. Let me paint the scene to you. Let's say that you, the viewer, are playing a 2 Vanguard, 2 Duelist, and 2 Strategist comp on Attack on the Payload Tokyo 2099 map. Let's say that for this picture to work, that you, the viewer, are playing as Invisible Woman, with a Loki, a Magneto, a Thor, a Daredevil, and a Punisher. Your team just turned past the building and are in view of the overpass, and your team has just begun to fight the enemy War Machine, who stands just under the overpass, and he's just entered his defensive stance. Your Loki just calmed in, saying that they heard an Iron Man, but you don't worry, because you have both a Punisher and a Daredevil that could easily deal with it, and you just continue to heal your tanks. Suddenly, you get a view of the War Machine, and see that he stopped shooting, stands straight up out of his defensive stance, and raises his open palm to you. You turn around to see Iron Man directly behind you with the palm of his hand up and pointed in your direction. They both fire their repulsors at the same time, and as their beams clash, a massive explosion destroys both the duelists and Loki, leaving a half health Thor, a full health Magneto because of his shield, and you as Invisible Woman because of your jump. Half the team wiped immediately. Allow me to introduce the team up I created with Iron Man as the anchor. This is your plan? Now, I love Iron Man 2, and I wanted to have a reference to it which felt like the two characters interacting with one another. There are plenty of team-ups that War Machine and Iron Man have experienced in the many, many years of their inception, but I felt that this team-up in particular represents both characters efficiently, more when it comes to them as friends and Tony's sometimes reckless plans in the moment of a battle that either solves problems or just creates more. My brother had a different spin on this team-up specifically, which changes it from a straight damage to a team disruption. Instead of a massive explosion that could defeat most squishies, the explosion instead could push all enemies affected away from the epicenter of the explosion, making it fully useful to shake up a strong defense by displacing the foundation. As a side note, I would have gotten him back to record this part as well, but there's not much to say here, and I don't want to waste his time. I could imagine the voice lines between the two for this team-up would further represent their connection. To place a few here, I have them placed as if one initiates and the other responds when accepting the ability activation. With Iron Man initiating the team-up, he could say something along the lines of, "Hey Rhodes, I have an idea," or, "Remember this, Rhodey?" With War Machine accepting the initiation, saying, "Fine, let's do it," or, "Really? This again?" On the contrary, if War Machine initiates the team-up, he could say something along the lines of, "Ready to go, Stark?" or, "I hope this works." And if Iron Man accepts the initiation, he could say, "I thought you'd never ask," or, "Oh, it will. I made it." Let's, pivot gears a bit, shall we? Let's look at some of the designs I made. What you see in the background now is my depiction for the default skin for War Machine, including the icon, which would become a spray, and the main color scheme. As you could see, I used a few inspirations that you could probably guess, including the MCU Mark I from Iron Man 2 for the main general design, the Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes design, which is loosely based off the MCU design, the Rivals Iron Man default design for the general feel and vibe of the default, and of course, the comics, which we always use here. All of these references put together in a blender gave me the idea of giving him the color separation of bright silver amidst the darkened gunmetal of the main body. Now, in terms of recolors, it's very difficult to find different versions of War Machine to take from, as they all follow the same design philosophy. So, I looked for other references in the early days of the comics, such as the Silver Centurion. This armor originally was meant for Rhodey in the comics, whenever he was Iron Man for a short while for the West Coast Avengers. Now, we can't just give him the armor as a skin and call it a day. That would more than likely be an Iron Man skin that I, personally, would buy in a heartbeat. But taking its color scheme and applying it to the War Machine armor results in a very different vibe. Who knew? Red and silver was both flashy and menacing. Well, I guess Tony did. And that explains a few things. Anyway, moving on. I'm going to do a weird skin first, before I get to the skin that I would personally love to have if ever War Machine were added to the game. Twitch drops. We know them, we love them, sometimes, but for Marvel Rivals specifically, we frequently get skins for the characters in the game. One of these skin sets that can be claimed is a, quote, Will of Galacta set for a variety of different characters, which baseline is just a recolor of the default skin in the magenta purples, the dark blues, and the cyan teals of Galacta herself. This, you see here, is my take on what the Will of Galacta skin would look like for my default War Machine. Weirdly enough, if you remember all the way back to the beginning of the video, when I discussed the lore of War Machine, you'd remember the Sentinel program he was a trainer for. And those Sentinels happen to share a very similar color palette to the Will of Galactus skins. Now, I didn't use those Sentinels as an inspiration for the recolor, but I thought it was an interesting detail to share. So do with that what you will. The skin I did use as inspiration, however, is the new Will of Galactus skin for Ultron, which helped me with the color placements for this recolor, which I'm actually very happy about. It's also a really good Ultron skin. Honestly, come check it out. Now to the skin I am most excited to show you. This is my take on War Machine as he appeared in the 3D animated show Iron Man Armored Adventures. Originally, I was just going to use it as a default recolor, but it's just such a different design that deserves its own model changes as well. The eyes here are blue, same with the arc reactor, but you would think that would be a problem for gameplay, but Iron Man himself has two skins that already makes it work. Those being the Superior Iron Man and the Vampire Armor skins. I can never remember that one. Both of which don't affect gameplay at all. The enemy version of this War Machine skin could just have red eyes and arc reactor, which shouldn't be too difficult since the Superior Iron Man does that exact thing. Honestly, there's not much else to say. Maybe aside from the ability that War Machine has in the comics that I couldn't add as an ability, because I feel it would be too much for his kit. To explain, War Machine's newest armor in the comics, in addition to phasing, can also cloak itself from sight and external scanners. Now, I do not think there is a believable way to implement it and make it balanced, because it would just be such a loaded ability on its own, and I don't want to add it to phased flight because I don't want to complicate such a simple ability for movement. Frankly, I'm just slightly worried that Rhodey isn't mentioned at all in the game, the lore, the interactions, or even hidden text. It just has me worried that he might never make it in. But I'm still holding out hope. I mean, my stream titles for Rivals always mention him in some way, so I'm technically still keeping the dream alive. On a side note, I guess more of a side track, I formatted this artwork the way I did because I remember when Ultron's design got leaked through a blurry picture. There was an artist that took it and recreated the design and loved it so much that they made two plausible skins based off the classic Ultron 5 from the comics and the damaged Iron Legion bot from Avengers Age of Ultron, with various design changes for the sakes of artists' creative choices and for actually making the design work for the game. If I find the image, it'll be on the screen now so you can see what I mean. As for the thumbnail art, that was based off of official concept art for Iron Man for Rivals that I changed for obvious reasons. I mean, it's not Iron Man. Let me know what your thoughts are on it. And with all that said, we've come to the end. This has been the most in-depth I've ever gone into making a video like this. But I had fun, even with my first time editing, which is a very daunting task to start with, but hey, thank you for watching through the entirety of the video. Anyways, be sure to comment down below what you thought of the kit, and while you're down there, if you liked and subscribed, that would mean the world to me. Come check me out over on Twitch, where I'm live almost daily, playing a variety of things from Marvel Rivals to Helldivers 2. Join the community and chat about your kits for characters. I could look through them all and include them in the next edition of the series as long as the character's there. But with all that said, take care and have fun. Goodbye for now.